Hey there everyone, welcome back to Dan Cave and welcome to another video build. So this video build is of the Micromir 144th scale Vickers Valiant, one of the V bombers. So if you follow the channel, I built the Great Wall Hobbies 144th scale Victor and Vulcan over the last few years, and yeah, this time it's the turn of the Valiant and it's the final of the V bombers. So really short video. Kit was built earlier this year. I've kept it quite short because it's quite a simple kit. It's also not a great kit, but I put together the video anyway. So if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video and feel free to leave a comment. So let's dive on into the footage and crack on with this build. And I'll be back at the end for my final thoughts. So enjoy the build. So this, of course, is a short run injection kit from Micromir. So reasonably low expectations, and they were definitely met. So the kit is, it's pretty rough around the edges, lack of locating points. There is some photo etch in there. Most of it turns out it won't fit, but that's beside the point. But however, starting place is getting all these parts cleaned up. Now, the transparent pieces are extremely thick. So there's going to be no visibility through them. So essentially, I can pretty much crack on with assembling pretty much the entire kit almost in one go, because there's very little needs to be painted on the inside. Starting off with the wings, of course, adding the intake trunking, relatively easy. Then using some of the Tamiya white top, basically to give me some slower curing time, to attach the lower wing halves to the single piece top section. So that can be set aside to cure. You may notice I've added some nose weight. This will be a tail sitter without nose weight. Cockpit parts have been added. They're not going to be visible, so they weren't painted. And the fuselage halves can be glued together and pinned together for a few hours of curing. Now, once that curing is complete, I can come straight back in to try and fit the wings onto the fuselage. Now, they do slot in after a fashion. The fit is not brilliant. Some filling will be required, particularly on the underside wing roots. Not that it is going to be particularly visible, but I will add some filler anyway. So plenty of Humbrol filler has been used around most of the seam lines, most of the join lines. Wing trailing edge as well, wing leading edges. And once that filler is cured, it's back in with some UMP sanding sponges, just to knock that back down to get a relatively smooth finish. Now the engine intakes, I'm using a round file just to try and improve the look of the seam line on the inside. And then the HTPs can be added. So these are pretty much just butt joined. There's almost no locating points whatsoever, no positive location. A vague reference to where they sit. They're glued in place and left to cure. So once everything has been cured and I'm reasonably happy with the filling, I'm going to go back in and rescribe some of the panel lines that have been either obliterated through sanding or just filled with sanding dust. Once all that is done and the model is given a wipe down, it's over to the spray booth and UMB grey primer is used as a primer coat. Now this course will reveal any further flaws with any of the sanding, but at this stage there's only a few minor corrections to make. Once they're corrected, I can then reprime with UMP grey. And once that UMB grey has had about 24 hours curing time, we can go back in with the base coat of the Hataka acrylic line, RAF anti-flash white. So this is their pre-thinned, airbrush ready acrylic line, which does need a little bit of further thinning, about 20% thinner added, just to get it down to a more usable consistency. So I'm building up the white coat, building it up in trying to leave some of the grey from underneath showing through, just to add a little bit of kind of visual interest and visual variation. Once that white is cured, I'm going to mask up a few areas that need to be done in slightly different colours. Under the nose is going to be in grey, in black, I think. And then the anti-glare panel on the upper side in front of the cockpit, and then the top of the fin as well is done in black as well. So just using a little bit of cardboard to basically stop any overspray. Saves me having to mask the entire kit. Now, the decals in this kit were truly awful. The first one I tried to use completely broke up. So I sprayed the decal sheet with microscale liquid decal film. That was then allowed to cure. And then I'm using some Tamiya decal adhesive to try and improve the adhesion from these decals, because they don't really stick very well. They tend to sit. You'll add some decal solutions and they'll just curl up at the edges. So just trying to use the decal adhesive just to add a little bit of bite to the surface to help them stick down. They do eventually go down. UMP solutions do really help to bed them in. And once I'm happy that all the decals are on, I can leave that to cure and head back over to the spray booth to crack on with some priming of things like wheels, undercarriage, any of the actuator doors, so everything gets primed in UMP black. And once I'm finished with this UMP black coat, leave it to cure, and then I can come back in with the Hitaka silver to spray pretty much all the components, the undercarriage. The center of the wheel hubs I'll paint by brush, by hand. Now once those decals are fully cured, I give the model a coat of Winsor & Newton Galleria satin, just to seal everything in, ready for weathering. So a couple of coats of satin should protect all those paint and decals. But before I head for the weathering, I'm actually going to add the landing gear and landing gear doors, just to make sure everything is consistently weathered. So CA glue is mainly used to attach these parts. These actually go together reasonably well. Reasonable amount of detail actually for a simple limited run injection kit like this. But again, the fit of things like the wheels onto the actual hubs is pretty bad. So plenty of CA glue is used to give a strong finish. So as you can see, I'm adding the last of the main wheels, a little bit of CA glue, and then a little bit of CA kicker once I'm happy it's aligned and in place. And that should all instantly set. So once that's all completed, it's time to start adding some UMP water-based washes. So I'm using the concrete grey colour basically to do a panel line wash. Now, I was a little bit disappointed over the Galleria satin coat. I actually got more staining from the UMP solutions than I expected. Normally you can blend it in quite well over a satin coat. This satin coat didn't work quite well, probably due to the contrast between the white and the grey. But it meant it was a little bit harder work to get it cleaned up and looking reasonably respectable. However, eventually we do get there in the end. And that's the kind of first layer of weathering added to the upper and lower surfaces. So then start adding some dark earth, some mud, just to add some different tones to the underside, where any kind of ground contamination we picked up on the underside of the aircraft. So again, that's using the water-based washes from UMP. And then manipulating them with some water and then wiping down any excess with basically a cotton bud soaked in just ordinary tap water. So again, once I'm reasonably happy that I've got a sufficient amount of dirt on the underside, certain areas like the flaps, ailerons, elevators, they'll get an additional kind of coat of, I suppose it's a mixture of UMP, dark dirt, and the concrete colour. Once again, just add a little bit of contrast to those surfaces. And just to show that there are areas that often get more exposed to hydraulic oils, more grime on the underside, etc., particularly after the landing gear area. And just manipulating those washes with some water. Now, once that's been fully cured, all of that's sealed in with some Winsor & Newton again. And then I decided to try and tone down some of the contrast on the panel line using some oil paints. So I'm using a white oil paint just to subtly try and tone down some of those areas. That does help, proves the visual kind of look of some of the upper surfaces. And then the final step is just adding on the 4 exhaust outlets basically for the engine. And that is the very final step of this kit. That is now completed. So it's time to have a look at some of the final pictures of how all this has come out. So there we have it. That was the Micromir 144th scale Vickers Valiant. As I said at the start, not a great kit. Very rough, short run injection mold kit. A lot of filler required. Very little detail. There is a little bit of photo etch included, but it doesn't fit very well. Doesn't match up to the kit. Nice that they added it, but not really sure it added much to it. And of course, if you follow what kits are out there, you will know Great Wall Hobby have, of course, released the Valiant now on 144th scale. So I'll probably end up rebuilding the Valiant in that scale from them. However, I think it's come out okay. Not entirely pleased with the weathering. I think it could have been a little bit better, a little bit cleaner in terms of how it looked. I think it was probably the right amount of weathering for that scale kit, but probably wasn't executed as well as I could done. But then I think towards the end of the build, I just wanted it done because I wasn't impressed with the kit. The decals are absolutely abysmal. They either fall apart, so I coated them with micro scale liquid decal film. That just seemed to make them not fall apart, but then not adhere. Tamiya decal adhesive did help with some of the decals, but still they were a bit of a challenge to get through. Luckily enough, there's not a huge amount in the kit anyway. So there we go. That's the build. It's another one finished. It's all 3 V bombers finished over the last couple of years, which was what I wanted to do. I wouldn't have the space to have them in 72nd scale, so 144th was the only option for me. So thank you for watching. If you're not a subscriber, don't forget to subscribe. If you like the video, give it a like. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. So I'll say adios for now. Thank you for watching. See you all very, very soon. See you in the next video. Bye bye from me.